Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. It's great to have you here. This is a show where we answer your questions on media production. So if you've got questions, it's your time. Throw them into our question system, Makana, where you can also live chat with the other producers and vote on questions. If you're not in Makana, just head on over to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global, where you can submit your questions 24/7, or you can even scan this QR code right here and get those questions in front of this really great panel. We have a really great panel today. So if you've got questions, man, you're in luck. Let's dive right into them. Bill?
Sure. Our first one this morning comes from Gabriela Estacia Mistera in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. How much does someone donate to get one of those excellent OHG crew shirts that everyone will wear during NAB to promote who is filming the event? Alex talked lots about how much he has invested to make the right design on the best shirts really want.
Go ahead, Alex.
I spent a lot of time looking at the shirts, and I'm still in a decision process around them. So I don't know if we'll have them before. These may end up being crew shirts like what we would get when we finished film. And I apologize to everyone for that. We will have some shirts that will come out that you can buy that are commemorative of this, but I don't know if I'm going to have them ahead of time. If you're someone who knows a lot about doing T-shirts, ping me in Discord. So, it's changed. The nature of that has changed a lot since I did it. 20 years ago, I used to do it a lot. But, the problem, I will admit, I'm very sensitive to very certain things about shirts. And I just haven't found mass production shirts that I'm happy with yet. And I've gone through about 15 of them now. So if someone's got good ideas, send them to me in Discord. If we have enough time, we'll still get crew shirts. We would not, just as a note, we'll never sell crew shirts to people that are not on the crew. So you'd have to know somebody on the crew to get you one. But we will have some OH shirts that are high quality coming out in May that are not specific to NAB. And those will range between probably about $35 and $65, depending on which ones you get. We're going to have ones that are more affordable that generate some revenue for us, but also get you a great shirt. And then we'll have ones that are a little more expensive for other folks that want to have ones that are more expensive. So we'll have two versions of those, and we'll see how they both turn out. So anyway, so stay tuned for that. We're running a little behind on that, but but I apologize. It's our first booth has turned out to be exciting. So we're almost there. But stay tuned. We will have a fair amount of things to buy in May. For all of you, and we're just kind of working out some of the mechanics of that. So stay tuned.
Next question.
Sam Rhimes in Maidenhead up next. Switching to a Sony ZV-E10. I can't access camera controls due to my disability. Need a Mac app for remote control, using it as a webcam. What's an application that can record the feed from the camera to an external drive?
Go ahead, Alex.
So those are two different questions, and so you have a couple different things. So what you're going to need there is probably the least expensive way to do it would be to get something like an Elgato, or there's a variety of things that'll turn into a webcam. You can also get a mini recorder from Blackmagic, and those aren't very expensive anymore, and plug those in, and then you'll use desktop recorder to record from the camera. So that's, as far as recording, those are probably the least expensive ways to do it connected to a Mac. As far as controlling it, my recommendation is, I believe it's available on both Mac and PC. There's an application called Monitor Plus, and Monitor Plus will allow you it basically turns the phone into its own. The phone has its own Wi-Fi, and you can turn that on and connect to the phone, and then you can control the phone from the Wi-Fi from your phone app. I don't know of a computer app to do, a laptop app or a Mac app to do it, but I do know that the phone app works with almost every Sony camera, and I've used it specifically with the ZV-E10.
Ronnie?
Yeah, and if you can manage to play a little bit with Ecamm, Oliver just the other day announced that recording, not in Ecamm, in the Mimo Live, recording in Mimo Live can automatically upload a file after it's been recorded. And I'm pretty sure I would be able to hack also the interface to use the Mimo Live's control surface to also control some of the functions inside the camera.
Alex?
Yeah, and if you use the Mimo Live route, you would use there's a webcam option, USB out of the camera that would go in. It's not as high quality as the HDMI output, so you just have to know that if you want to record a higher quality version of it, you would still need a mini recorder, and the desktop video comes for free. The recorder or I can't think of what it's called right now, but anyway, it is a piece of software that will come for free with the Blackmagic Mini recorder or works with it. But if you do the turn it into a webcam, then Ronnie's absolutely right that you can just use something like Mimo or Ecamm or QuickTime. You can literally record it with QuickTime once you turn it into a webcam.
Next question.
Andy Kokendorfer in VR Florida is up next. How would you describe the opportunities of live streaming to LinkedIn? What advantages does LinkedIn offer?
Go ahead, Alex.
The big advantage is being able to directly interact with your network. The disadvantage is that you're directly interacting with your network. So what I mean by that is that you really have to, in my opinion, you really have to kind of have your ducks in a row. And that's why we've taken a lot of time to get there. So we're getting ready to do it. And NAB just took up a little bit too much time. So we kind of put that on the back burner until we get through NAB. But in May, you'll see us start to stream to my account at first on LinkedIn, and then we'll expand from there. But it's been one of those things that we have to kind of make sure that everything's really working, because this is the people that you work with. Now, if you don't have a very large network on LinkedIn, then it probably is not as effective. But if you have a large, I'm probably connected to 4,000 people or something like that. It's not a massive following or a massive list, but it's people that I work with, and I think that the chances of them being interested in what I'm doing is pretty high, being able to talk about those things. And so I think that, and then if they share it, if they look at it, it's not just them, it's the fact that they might share it, they might comment on it, they might interact. So that's the big advantage that we see, or that I see in streaming to LinkedIn. And it's been, again, something that I put off just because I really wanted to make sure most likely we would stream to my account. And it's probably my LinkedIn account is probably my most valued possession when it comes online, much more than my Twitter account. And that's why I don't post very often on it. I probably should post more, but I'm pretty careful about what I put there.
Guy?
Yeah, unless you have to, I wouldn't recommend live streaming to LinkedIn. It's a bit of a dumpster fire. They just they don't have their stuff together. If you do, keep the megabits per second under 4,000. If you try and go a little bit higher than that, you will have some issues. Our friend Greg Gibson, he has to stream there often for clients, and that's why he doesn't have any hair anymore. He tore it all out. It's just gone. It's just a dumpster fire, and he's on there a couple of times. We're trying to figure out how to just make it as perfect as possible, and it's not reliable. So at this time, I know Dan's one of the guys that works there and frequently is a viewer of Office Hours. And Dan, please help us stream to your platform in the most pristine way by getting your stuff together. We'd appreciate it. Thanks,
Alex.
I think it's probably a little bit more finicky than most. But I'm used to streaming to all kinds of things all over the world, and I wouldn't say that it's considerably more finicky than other platforms that I've used. Now, it's not. I think when we get used to streaming to things like YouTube is a tank. You can throw almost anything at it, and it's going to spit video out the other end. But I think that I find lots of platforms to be somewhat finicky, and I would say LinkedIn's kind of on the spectrum of being more finicky. But I think that it's not something that is. It's just a matter of figuring out what it wants, and so that's one of the things that's delayed us. Also, is just we've met with them where. You have to there's a cadence to everything, and every bit, like all the settings have to be exactly what they're asking for, or it's not going to work. You can't make anything up. You can't have it be another feed that is just the same as the other ones. It really does have to have its own input. And Twitter's the same way. Like, so when we stream to Twitter, the old Twitter, not Elon, but even before Elon, like the old streaming was really stable, and now you have to be super careful again. So anyway, that I think it's mostly you really have to pay attention. As someone who does a lot of encoding, you really have to pay attention to every setting that they're asking for, not just the ones that we're used to paying attention to.
Next question.
Ignacio Madeira in Madrid is up next. Does anybody on the panel know if NDI router can be controlled by Companion? It would be really useful. That's one of our QR code questions.
Jason?
Full disclosure, I've never done this before, but a quick Google search showed me that Rascular, the company with this QR code at the bottom of my screen, has the ability to do this, and it will also integrate with Blackmagic's Video Hub. So you can actually do both. You can do NDI's Rascular, and that too will also tie in if you're routing with Blackmagic.
Next question.
Lon Keller in Moorhead, Minnesota says, looking for a different, perhaps better way to use the Sony a7S III 4K files in Final Cut Pro. Transcoding to ProRes before importing into Final Cut has been our primary workflow. Any other suggestions?
Go ahead, Alex.
For Final Cut, that's the workflow that everybody I know uses. so it is because the wrapper, the ProRes container is larger than the A7S's container, which means that it has a larger bit depth. And so you always want to put whatever you're capturing. The reason you don't do, like if you're doing uncompressed or like Blackmagic RAW or Red RAW or whatever, you don't want to necessarily do that because you're going into a ProRes would be a smaller container most of the time. Although if you even convert those to 444 XS or whatever, you're not going to lose very much there as you go through that. But in the Sony A7 line, converting it to, I think the container that is HQ and definitely the 444 will be a larger container than what the Sony is capturing, and then you should be fine. But ProRes is in my opinion, if you're on a Mac and using Final Cut, I conform everything to ProRes. Like absolutely, if you hand me something and I'm doing an edit, everything is going to become ProRes, as it goes in. If I'm doing a precision color and I'm getting raw data, then I'm not editing Final Cut. I'm editing in Resolve. And then at that point, there's a lot of different formats. But when I'm doing stuff in Final Cut, everything turns into ProRes because it's going to work faster, more stably, and be easier to work with. And again, that's just, for me, that's you hand me a bunch of stuff and overnight I'm going to transcode it. And then when it comes out the other end, now if you want to go to ProRes natively, just hook up an Atomos or a Blackmagic monitor to it and capture it as ProRes as it comes in, and then you don't have to do the transcode. So if this is a speed issue, have an external capture system and then deliver it as ProRes. But ProRes is a pretty great file format, and it's a pretty good mezzanine to do your edits.
And Lon, just a +1 on the stability front. A lot of people are going to say, oh, you can throw any format into Final Cut. You can throw H.264. You can throw what came out of the camera. And it might cut fine, but where it's going to bite you is when you're exporting and all of a sudden something's not rendering correctly, or you have a little frame that's like tweaking a little bit. ProRes almost never happens. It's the end of the process. It's the finishing sometimes. When your stuff's already built, that it bit you that you didn't go to ProRes. So second that, ProRes all the way. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael up next. One UI, user interface feature, of Yamaha consoles I found convenient are the user-defined keys, especially bookmarking frequently used pages. Anyone have any other tips for working with Yamaha consoles?
Jeff?
Good morning. My best found was being able to link those user buttons to or be able to call up scenes. And so we're using the scenes to transfer between. There's a great little function called crossfade. So you can set up some automation between the user scenes, and it makes it very easy if you have a very, they call it predictable broadcast, which we did when we were doing tennis. So we would know that we wanted Nats up for the world feed through the more of the play, and then when we went down to the benches, we would have another scene that would just go into the side microphones off in the actual chair, umpire chair, and then we'd transition back. So it made it really easy to go back and forth without having to worry about grabbing 6 letters or having to group things and stuff like that. So that's where we use it, is for going between scenes.
Next question.
Brian Taylor in Washington, D.C. Is there, or why is there not, as simple a browser-based MIDI router a la AJA's Kumo intuitive browser-based graphic user interface?
Courtney?
I looked for some of these and I had a lot of trouble, as you said, finding anything. There's a few 0.5 versions out there of the stuff that looks like it's written by somebody in their basement and posted for using a web-based GUI for MIDI routing. I think the problem is MIDI routing is different on different sets of hardware. So finding a single user interface that's web-based that works cross-platform or cross-hardware, cross-MIDI hardware is problematic. I did find a repository on GitHub of web MIDI tools that are, it says, following tools are self-contained web applications which interact with attached MIDI instruments using web MIDI API. So it lists a variety of different tools that do different things using the web-based MIDI interface. So it's problematic across platform. I did find some software out there that lets you connect two computers over the web via MIDI, so that an instructor, for example, could do music lessons over the web, but it's a one-to-one routing over the internet. But it didn't seem to be like local routing of MIDI instruments into your PC. So keep looking.
Next question.
Eric Hertz in Hartford, Connecticut. Contrast Dante Connect with Unity Connect. What limitations of each prevent them from being interchangeable for production use cases?
Jeff?
From the get-go, Unity Connect is 64 channels. Dante Connect is up to 256 channels. There's a small difference there. Unity Connect is built for a certain application. You have to use it Mac to Mac. It's more of a peer-to-peer type approach. The Dante Connect is about going from ground to ground a little bit, but really it's really designed for ground to cloud, cloud to cloud, and bigger distribution methods from that point. It is in use. Dante Connect is definitely in use right now. As much as it can be done, it's not officially fully public, but is definitely in use. I'm actually personally know the product manager, so I hear that lots of great things are coming, and there's going to be some really great announcements in the next week.
Next question.
Sam Rhimes in Maidenhead up next. How can I improve my background for Zoom calls and talking head videos? Are different styles appropriate for different clients?
Go ahead, Jason.
Undoubtedly, different styles are better for different clients, but I'd say the single best thing that you can do is get a lens that will bokeh the background, because then the background will matter a lot less, and some good lighting in your foreground will just really make it matter a lot less what's behind you.
Nigel?
Years ago, I read an article about ties. I know we don't wear ties much anymore. And what it said was, if you meet someone for 5 seconds, don't have an interesting tie because it'll distract. If you're with somebody for an hour, wear an interesting tie because it'll say something interesting about you. And I actually think this works quite well for Zoom backgrounds as well. If you're doing fairly short things where you don't want the background to distract or to get in the way, then buy something like the Manfrotto collapsible backgrounds. Buy the bigger one, not the smaller one, the 6x7. The gray one, it's very bland, it's very clean, it will bring you forward and disappear the background. If, however, you're going to be on for longer and you want to give context to where you are or what you do or what you believe in, then you can start to populate, as you see here often, content behind you. Again, bokeh will give you a nice blur. Don't use the digital blur. It always makes a mess of it. But think about who you're trying to communicate and when and where you're trying to communicate, and make sure your background is contextually right for that conversation.
Ronnie?
Yeah, as previous speakers have said, don't use fake backgrounds. Use your real background. Or there is a guy called Jevin Dovey that actually. Sorry about that. Let me see here. That actually purchased 3 55-inch monitors. He's called Jevin Dovey. He has a YouTube channel, and what he did was go out and shoot different scenes that he actually just put up on those displays, and the end result is really amazing and is an example to follow. I'm thinking of doing this as well.
Alex?
Yeah, I do agree with the idea of, bokeh is really your friend. So if you're really trying to, the set is important, but this is mostly a pile of junk behind me. I mean, it's some old stuff that's all on a not a particularly expensive. It's just out of focus, and some of it has value to it, and some of it's interesting I can point to. But you'd be surprised at what you can get away with. I do think that if I attempt to, not always successfully have it look like I'm kind of just doing this. It's just stuff back. And in some cases, it really is just stuff behind me on shelves. So I have, Workbench right now on the other side here that is building cameras. And so I have that, that's there. So it is kind of like what's behind me, but the bokeh helps you a lot, so a Super 35 sensor is going to make it make everything look nicer, like literal, and then you just want a little bit of detail back there. The thing that I avoid is white. Really, really light backgrounds tend to make you not look well lit. A white wall is probably the most challenging that you'll have to work with. So you want to kind of think through that. The hierarchy, though, as you get into a connection, is always internet. You need a wired internet connection of at least 10 megs a second. Wired, not wireless. Like, it is wireless for something that matters is insanity. Like, so you just need to know that, like, you can have a gig connection, you're still going to see dropouts. Then your mic. Make sure that your mic is a good solid audio. Test it, work with other people, make sure that it's great. Then your lighting will make many of your webcams look better. Then your camera, get that short depth of field if you can, and then your background. So the background is the last thing you worry about in that sense of, as far as being able to project and to express yourself effectively inside of this format.
And Courtney.
Well, first you have to win some prestigious awards, Emmys, Tonys, Oscars. Then you have to light them tastefully, maybe include an eighth of a Salvador Dali print behind you. But seriously, the thing that bugs me a lot is people who put a bookcase behind them and don't have enough bokeh to put the book titles out of focus. Because whenever I watch somebody and I see a bookcase, I'm more interested in reading what books they're reading on their bookcase behind them than what they're saying. And so it's highly distracting to have readable titles on a bookcase behind you. So don't do that.
All right, Sam, now you've got the ultimate cheat codes. You're going to have the best Zoom calls ever. Next question.
We don't hear you, Bill. You're Zoom muted.
That's weird. I haven't touched that in weeks. All right, sorry about that. Excuse me. Let's go for Guy Cochran's question. Seattle, USA. Which AWS instance has the highest performance for vMix mixing and or switching?
Guy.
Yeah, so behind the scenes, we have somebody in the group that's attempting to mimic this show and build it in the cloud, and they're pushing vMix to its knees with these super sources and this bringing in of multiple sources. So it wasn't working very well. Well, yesterday, AWS announced some new instances. So there's now the AWS E2C, EC2 G6 instances, which are thanks to AI, putting this kind of demand on the data center. So the NVIDIA L4 Tensor Core GPUs with 24 gigs of memory per GPU. So these things offer twice the performance of what we had before of the G4DNs. And the pricing for what we would do with like a 4X is about $1.32. But check out what you can go up to. You can go up to what we would call bare metal G6 48X at large, 8 GPUs times 24 gigs of RAM. That's bananas. Plus the 192. That'll take up 192 vCPUs, and that thing will cost you about $13 an hour. Whether or not vMix will take up all of that is yet to be said. So for kicks this morning, I went ahead and swapped over. This is one of the interesting things about the cloud is I just took a G4DN instance and said, change that to a G6, and boom, it did. Well, unfortunately, when I did that, the drivers weren't available, which I kind of speculated. So I went and grabbed the drivers, installed them, and vMix still doesn't see it. So I got some work to do today, and we're just going to redo our script and have these deploy automatically with the new G6 instances. But I'm excited to work on this in the background and see how far we can push these new instances with this newfound power. And they're in the Ohio data center, Oregon, and Northern California data center today. Like I have one running right now. I have one running, so they're good to go.
Jeff?
Are you sure they're in Ohio? I thought I only read it was
I have
East
one.
Coast and West
Yeah.
Coast. Okay.
No,
right.
here's one running right now.
Cool. So
That's
I
Ohio.
okay.
Does it smell like Ohio?
I looked at them when I saw the announcement too, and yeah, it definitely is encouraging to see some new hardware coming out to play. The biggest issue is that a lot of the cloud that are designed for video production, they're designed like the TriCaster software is designed for a specific hardware model, and so that's one of the reasons why it can be so stable compared to a vMix that has just said, oh, we'll just put it on any computer and tell us what your results are. Or they'll give you guidelines and say, okay, well, this is the guidelines, but those don't equate to virtualized.
I think we lost Jeff. Oh, Jeff, you're coming apart. Your mic is falling apart.
Oh, it's right here.
I don't know.
It's got a bad connection.
You got a bad connection.
It's that crackly. Yeah.
All right, no worries. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. The Logitech G Series has a rich variety of mics, keyboards, headsets, and has a robust, attractive user interface. Would you use it beyond gaming for production?
Go ahead, Courtney.
Probably not. The Logitech G Series is designed for gamers, as you said, and gamers have a specific requirement. You know, their keyboards are clicky and noisy, so if you're using it for production, it could be noisy. Their headsets are designed for clarity to cut through the game sound effects, so it may not have full frequency response. So I'd be careful about some of those things. Some of their products that are new could be useful, which is their boom arms. They have the Yeti Caster. I don't like the Yeti microphone, so ignore that. That's a $229 microphone boom. So there's some cheaper ones for about $100. So could be some good support material in there for you, but generally, they put they market stuff to gamers because gamers will try and do anything to get an edge over everybody else. So stuff tends to be overpriced and only focused on the one thing that they need to do for gaming. So not really great for production, I'd say.
Jason?
Yeah, I'm going to second this. The interface, the applications, all the stuff that ties all your things together has gotten Logitech in a little bit of trouble of late. Suffice it to say, if it's loud and blinky, we don't want it in production unless it's part of the stage show.
Next question.
Another QR code question up. This one from Joe Phillips in Murphy, North Carolina. Has anyone found the secret sauce to permanently disable macOS reactions and effects globally? Maybe a hidden UI, a terminal command, or do we use a hammer?
Nigel.
Well, I don't think I did anything quite that drastic. Right at once your camera is on, and your camera needs to be on, right in the top toolbar, you should see a green box with a camera in it. And if you click on that green box, you get a drop-down menu, and that should allow you to turn off. If I click on mine, it shows that I'm on Zoom and offers me portrait, studio light, and reactions to turn them all on and off. Also has a mic mode. So that's always there, and it seems to remember, at least on my system, what I told it. So I've managed to turn them off for all the different tools I use.
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I can just go through that real quick. I mean, here we are, and here is my screen. And if I just turn off reactions right here, you may have to do it once per application, but after that, it stays. So just update your Mac, and I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, I can confirm it's a once per application situation. And even if you are in an enterprise environment where you have some sort of MDM profile on the Mac, there is no way to globally disable the reactions with one switch. It is a per app thing. So every new app that requests the camera is going to want to have reactions turned on. And so you either have to write a policy to have it manually turned off for that application, or you're you're going in and clicking every time. Go ahead, Courtney.
So once per application, the question I have is if you're, let's say you're in a Zoom call, but you're running several other applications like our panel view in a browser, or you're looking up something on another browser input. If you click over into that browser and you do this or something, is it still going to take action?
It's not going to do it for Zoom. It's only going to do it in that application. So it's a per application thing. So if you have it on for Zoom but off for OBS, it'll do it in Zoom but not in OBS. It's every application that requests your camera is going to need to have a note on whether or not reactions are on or off. But it is only going to react within that application, not globally on the computer's video feed.
Okay, gotcha.
Next question.
Steve Uroff in Madison, Wisconsin. Can NDI scan converter on Mac OS also include application or system audio, or is it expected to be a video-only tool?
Guy?
I just tried it out just to test and make sure that it was flowing. And even though when I chose the speaker to be NDI audio out, I'm not seeing the audio come through. So I thought that it had worked in the past, but I use Memo Live for this very function. So I'm wondering if it's something that's unique on the Mac. And this was just with NDI 5. I haven't installed NDI 6 on this machine. There might be a new change, but I could run some tests on I have a kind of an isolated machine that I'll be installing some NDI 6 stuff. I've been putting it on the cloud instances, so I can just throw them away when I'm done. But I'll run some more tests. But for right now, what I'm seeing is no audio is coming through. I'm literally looking at it right now, and it's not coming through.
Jason?
Yeah, ditto to what Guy said. I haven't used NDI scan converter since I moved to Apple Silicon. And that just kind of wrecked my world when everything was Intel Mac only, and I haven't gotten back to it. But my recollection is it should work, and I haven't tried it recently.
And Guy?
One more thing is there is in vMix Desktop Capture is the other one to give a roll. It is a free download. You can go to the vMix site, and then there's a tool called vMix Desktop Capture, and it runs on the Mac. And give that one a try and see if your audio will flow through that.
Thanks for that. Coming up at the top of the hour, we've got more NAB stuff. Today is how are we covering NAB? So we're going to talk all about the gear we're bringing, what does our booth look like, what's the game plan for how we're going to broadcast. So be sure to stick around for that. Get your questions in for that hour in Makana, and maybe even some more general questions. And if you're not in Makana, you can also, of course, do that at askofficehours.global, or you can scan the QR code right here. But I just like to use the old askofficehours.global. Give those thumbs a workout. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. And he says, have any of the panelists ridden in a self-driving car like a Cruise or Waymo?
Nigel.
I haven't, but I do have a self-driving Tesla, which I use quite a lot. And I found it a very entertaining, enjoyable experience. You can't quite turn off. You do have to pay attention and start predicting how you think the car's going to react, particularly in things like heavy traffic or construction. But my most joyous moment on, I think it was the Cruise, was there was a little junction in Austin, Texas, where two of them met and remained in a Mexican standoff, and then both got into a bad mood and stopped, holding up the traffic on the whole road.
Oh my goodness. Courtney.
I haven't yet. I looked into it. They are available in Los Angeles. I see them driving around, and I've got a little story about that in a second. But I went to try and see if I could hail one. And so I went to their website, and it's join the wait list, in other words. So you have to sign up for it to be available, and they don't just let anybody ride in it, apparently. You have to fill out a little form to join the wait list that asks you, how many times do you travel this way? And what's your zip code? And what is your reason for wanting to travel? So they're carefully screening all the people that they're picking up. Maybe, and because it is kind of a test, I guess, in this neighborhood. And I saw one yesterday, and here's the strange thing. I drove by it, and there was a police car had it pulled over, and there was a bicyclist there. Now, I didn't stop to find out the particulars, but I started to wonder, well, what if bicyclists are now gaming the Waymos, because we have a lot of stunt men that live in Los Angeles, and they like to try out their stunts, like being hit by a car on a bicycle. And I'm just wondering if they're kind of trolling the Waymos to try and get them to hit them and make a big paycheck off of the Waymo. So I think it's in dangerous territory here with so many stuntmen looking for employment,
Jeff?
Sorry about earlier, guys. That should be better now. The Teslas are quite nice. I've got a Model X and a Model S. Model S is old, doesn't have self-driving. I have to use old human ways of doing it, which is like really weird. Whenever I'm used to driving my X, which drives most of the time, I would put it on autopilot, which is what they call more or less almost full self-driving. And autopilot would probably be used. I say I go from Texas here to one of the coasts. I'd probably use it 85% of the time. That's how high it is. But it frequently tries to kill me. Whenever I'm going through certain highways, like split highways with a median in the middle, especially those that have that little bitty short run in. Oh yeah, down our Highway 90 over here going to Houston, it'll try to kill me at every single one of those almost, and it's really irritating. My daughter's Model Y, which we just got for her, has full self-driving on it now, and it's substantially better than my 2018 Model X already. So technology is progressing, and just overall in general, it is getting there. It's amazing now with when they've enabled version 12 full self-driving. It is pretty amazing whenever it works. It's the few times that it doesn't that just make you kind of cringe a little.
Jason?
Tried to kill him repeatedly. I love that. So a few years ago at CES, I think it was BMW had something in the Las Vegas Convention Center parking lot. They had a little, maze of things showing, autonomous cars, and showed them my press pass, and they let me ride in it. And it was a nice little demo. Other than that, I haven't really played around with it.
Well, Douglas, hopefully one of us gets off the wait list and can report back on a Cruiser or Waymo, but plenty of self-driving experience abounds. Next question.
Eric Strand in Essex, Connecticut, following up on Guy's question about AWS and vMix. What factors are important when recording using the multicorder in vMix? RAM, CPU? Thanks.
Jeff?
I, for one, have never had it work reliably in the cloud. If we're talking about cloud, I mean, I say AWS, so I'm assuming you're talking about cloud, Eric. It works, but it's not as reliable as some of the other methods that we use. For instance, I use Sienna Processing Engine considerably in all of my cloud productions, and that's where I do my recordings, and I've done quite a few, like in the 30s of recordings in that. vMix just seems to be a little bit harder to dial in exactly what the hardware and the software needs. And as I was alluding to earlier, before my microphone decided to go for a hike, the biggest issue in the cloud is that because of the overhead of the hypervisor and everything else, it doesn't equate out to a one-to-one type of thing. So you can't just look at the specs and go, oh, this is the same as an i9, or this is the same as a latest generation Threadripper. It's close, but it's not 100% exactly the same. And so there's things in the background that you don't know, like how many other people are on that machine, how much are they using. Unless you're going 100% bare metal, like Guy mentioned, drop your pocket, because it's going to be a big hit at $13-14 an hour, probably, I think, for that bigger instance in bare metal. That means bare metal means it's your machine, but there's still overhead there. And it's really costly to do that just to run vMix in the cloud. As I was mentioning earlier, with all the cloud software, there's very, very little out there. When I say like very, very, probably less than I can count on my hand. Very, very little software that is in our industry, the audio video industry, written for the cloud and able to take care of all the virtual CPUs and take care of all the RAM and really manage what is there. Right now, we're still just putting Band-Aids on a small cut, because they're we're just lipsticking the pig, as they used to say, right? We're just making it look pretty. We're just taking the stuff that was on the ground and putting it in the cloud. It's not built for the cloud. So we have to take those things into consideration all the time.
Guy?
Yeah, this particular project that we're working on, it would run fine locally on a high-end graphics machine. 4090, I believe, is what he's got in the machine. So we started looking at the CPU, the GPU, because it's called a T4. And so I started looking at Google Cloud and Azure and seeing what they have, and it's the same T4 tensor. So this is exciting because it's new. And one of the things that vMix does is there's something called resizable bar, and that's something I need to dig into and see if it'll actually take advantage of all this performance. So vMix will only use so much of the CPU, the memory, and all that. So what we do is we distribute the load. So whenever you look at our VPCs, we have 6 running. We're putting recording over here, cutting over here, graphics over here, Zoom rooms to bring in contributors over here. So everything's segmented and it handles it beautifully. So because the G4 DN processors they're old. They could only handle so much. So we just distribute the load. So for recording, I don't even like vMix multi-core because it records in a codec that's not very edit friendly for, depending on if you're using Premiere or Resolve, whatever you're editing in. So there's other options. LiveMind is another option for recording. That way you can get the format that you want. That's something that's an interframe codec that you can edit faster and smoother with. So there's more to it than just saying, let's use vMix to record.
Jeff?
I was going to follow up on, besides the LiveMind is one I've actually used fairly successfully to do multi-channel recordings. I did 12 channels for some HBO thing a while back, after party kind of thing. And it did very well for an hour worth. And that was all in the cloud, all brought in there. At the same time, though, I was using VizVector to do the exact same thing. And I was recording 12 channels there. The advantage of the way VizVector records, it records into an NDI itself. So it's an NDI file that's the stream of NDI is writing directly to the hard drive. And that's why it can do so much more than, say, the comparable thing in vMix. It's not trying to re-encode. It's not trying to recreate those files to the hard drive. It's actually just streaming the NDI directly to hard drive, writing it to hard drive. So as long as you have fast hard drives, well, hey, we're in the cloud. We can do that. But again, you don't know everything about the machine that it's on. And that's the gotcha part of it. You have to kind of distribute your workflow, exactly like what Guy said.
Next question.
Robert Soji in Los Angeles says, how do you sell a domain name?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
There's a few ways. One of the things we've done in the past, and this is many, many years back, is to actually create a dummy site with the domain and just advertise on that site specifically. With a contact form. That's a good way to get a hold of those clients that actually are looking for your domain, and of course make that SEO optimal, so that everyone hits it. We had I think it must be like 22 years back. We were into this domain. We had a lot of domains, and back in those days, the name without a letter or a missing letter, like webshop, just without the E, was a domain we had in the .com top-level domain. And we were contacted by a nice person telling us that they wanted to maybe consider purchasing this domain. And we were thinking, like, who could this be? Who is after this? And we tried to find out the address and etc. This was an agency, so it's impossible for us to find out. 6 months later, and we sold it eventually, and 6 months later, we saw there was a big company called something with WB, Warner Bros., I think it's called. Yeah.
Courtney.
Wonder who that could be. Yeah, you can go through a broker. There are a large number of domain name brokers out there. Here's one called SAW, and you know they must be a good broker because they've got a 3-letter domain that spells a real word. And you can buy, sell, or have them appraise your domain name. If you have a particularly desirous name, like a three-character domain that's registered many years ago because there are no more ones available, they're fairly scarce. For example, my union, there's a union head here, had early on bought 695.com, a three-digit number with .com. And we had our website on it for many years. And so we got an offer from a broker, and we ended up selling it. I was on the board of directors at the time. We sold our domain to a broker for $150,000. I just changed our name to local695.com, which we bought for $50, and and moved on. So you can make a lot of money in this market if you have a desirable name. And a broker is maybe one of the best ways of putting it out there for sale. They will take a percentage of the sale if you get a big number, and you have the right to refuse that offer, usually. So make a deal with a broker if you've got a desirable name. Otherwise, just contact the domain. And another tip: if you have a desirable name and you're not using it, it's not actively used, make sure that you auto renew it, or make sure that it's automatically renewed when the registration expires. Because people, if it's a desirable name, there are bots out there that are looking at desirable names and checking registration every single day. And if your registration expires for a day, you could come back and go, "Oh, I forgot to re-up my registration. Oops, it's gone. Somebody else owns it." So be careful about that.
You say domain name broker. I just have this image of a cartoon of like it's some back alley, and there's a guy's like, "Hey kid, you need a domain? I got a bunch here.
Got a three-digit domain number.
.coms, .biz, .net. I got a little bit of everything."
Yeah.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Jeff, I got the 98-inch TCL monitor. Ryan Rademan helped unload it. Thank you. For an LED wall. What's the next step, and what's the best way to mount it?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, you're not going to like this. First off, call Ryan, get him to come back and help you load it back up. Because it's not a solution. It's not an LED wall. It's a TV. The TV is not a wall. The one behind me right now costs more than the TV, yes, but it's much larger. The problem you're going to have is getting something large enough and at the right angle with your camera. So it can be done. I'm not saying it can't, but it's going to take a lot of work, and you're really going to have the right camera with you're going to need a large chip. And, full frame would probably be best with a good lens to be able to get that bokeh to fall off really fast. Otherwise, you're going to have to also have separation. This screen is actually pretty close for most LED screens, but it just works with the combination that I have for so much. I've toyed around with multiple cameras. I ended up with this one working. I'm not going to endorse the camera. It's not a great camera, but it's a decent camera. But it just has just the right amount of fall off. I've tried my Panasonics, my BGHs with big different lenses and all. I could never dial it in just right. And those are small little box cameras, which I really would rather have in front of me than this thing. But the difference is whenever you're shooting backwards, you need enough separation between you and the screen behind you. And even with a 98, I just don't feel like you're going to find it. You're just going to be fighting that. But it's up to you. The other choice is like, I think it was Courtney was showing earlier, or I'm not sure who was showing it earlier, but having 3 screens, setting up an array, or 4 even. So maybe think about that. That might be an option, but you're always going to have the lines and the bezels unless you do something tasteful like that gentleman did with the vertical screens, and then was able to make it look like a window, or it looks like you're looking out the window. So it's going to be tough.
Alex?
I will respectfully disagree with Jeff. So the large screens are the number one way that Insert Studios run in almost the entire United States, and they're usually not as big as 98. So 98, welcome. So Insert Studios use these all the time. There's a couple things that you need to think about. The pitch on these screens will be much tighter than a regular LED wall, so you won't have to have them quite as far back. I think the last one we used was an 85-inch. An 85-inch in our Insert Studio was approximately 3.5 feet behind the person. We never saw anything, any kind of array or anything else that we had there. And we were on a 2/3 inch chip. So that was a Sony F950 that was in that space. There are a couple things that you want to think about. There is the first thing is that you need, it's a big monitor. You're best off getting a hydraulic lift for it. So you can buy these separately and then build them into it. You can buy ones that are all pre-built. They're really expensive and they're usually not as flexible. We built ours. And so what you do, but it needs to be able to manage the weight. A 90-inch is probably 150 pounds is my guess. And so you got to make sure that that the lift is rated for at least twice that. So, 250 to 300 pounds, 250 could probably be fine with, but don't get close to it because it won't run very well. So you want to be able to move that up and down without having to turn anything or move it or whatever. So and what's going to typically happen is that hydraulic is going to come up. And the main thing is you got to be able to tilt the screen. So when you start lighting yourself, you need to be able to tilt the lights out of it. Of course you have angle of incidence is always angle of reflection. So if you turn the screen down like this, and you won't turn it that far, you'll turn it just a little down like this. What'll happen is that your lights will come down and they'll bounce down to an area below where your camera is shooting. And so you have the person there. So I guess it's going to be you, Paul. But that 98-inch will be great. If you may have trouble at 98 if it's a 1080p screen. For some reason, if you have a 1080p screen, you may see separation. At 4K, it should be fine, especially if you're using a Super 35 sensor or larger. The main thing that you want to think about is there are a couple different variables that you deal with when you deal with an Insert Studio style, which is what you're doing. What you're building you're not doing an LED wall, you're doing an Insert Studio for yourself. And so what you're doing is that you'll have this hydraulic lift. Given that you like to do tech, Paul, what you really want is that to be connected to some kind of Arduino or something where you can control that with an iPad or something, so that you can move things up and down, because you'll adjust that. And there's two things that you want to adjust. You'll usually by hand adjust the tilt, but it'd be really cool if you didn't. So if you want to go crazy, go ahead. But you have that screen here. Then you have a person here that's going to be sitting there. And again, this needs to be at least 3 feet. But it can to be safe, I'd probably say 4 or 5 feet to the back. But we've been 3 feet is with a 2/3 inch chip on an 85-inch screen has worked fine. Then you have a desk. The desk needs to be so the seat in a perfect world is like a barber seat style thing where you can do it by hand or motorized. You can look at these as accessibility seats. You want to be able to move the seat up and down. You want to move the desk up and down. And then finally, the camera, in a perfect world, it can also go up and down. So you put it on a pedestal. So you have a ped that you can move it up and down. And the reason for all of those things, in a perfect world, Paul, if you want to go crazy, they're all motorized and they're all remote controlled. So that we've done this for, so when we do satellite media tours where we have a different person every 25 minutes or so, having all of those motorized saves you a lot of time. And so you can kind of motorize them and get everything framed up. For you probably wouldn't need any of these motorized if you're doing it by yourself, because you'll play with it, you'll get it right. But again, as much as the ped is important because it'll easily move the camera up and down, the table is important because you want to get it just where you want it. And the same thing with your seat. The seat can just be mechanical, but you just need to be able to adjust it. But the monitor should be a motorized monitor. So however you want to get that, you want to make that actually work. But that's going to set you up with this entire distance in a typical Insert Studio is about 15 feet. You'd be better off with 20, but you can definitely do it in we've definitely done these in 15 by 10 by 9. Like that's a pretty standard. Like you go to Eurovision in DC and you'll see 4 of those just stacked one after the other. And that's all you're seeing for everything. Now, the other thing you need to make sure is that whatever you're supplying the monitor, you have color control over, because you're going to need the monitor itself won't be able to do, you have to play with backlighting and everything else to get it just right. But the other issue is that you'll want to have pretty good control over those images, because you'll end up knocking them down, playing with them a little bit, moving them around to get them where they want. But it's literally everything you see on CNN, everything you see everywhere else, everything that you're looking at. If what you're trying to do is that typical Insert Studio look, that's how all of these work. And most of them are not nearly as well set up as 98 inches. They're mostly 75, 65s that are behind there. A couple 85s. Ours was really big at 85.
Ronnie?
Yeah, everything has been said. Just remember that when you are lowering the light on as a background on those displays, they have a tend to start flickering. So be sure to have a good front light like I have right now. This is the sun. So bring a sun and you'll be good.
Courtney?
Yeah, Alex covered all the highlights I was going to mention about the tilt. I don't think you need a hydraulic. I just think if you're going to be it's going to be a permanent set. You're not going to be moving it around or going from room to room or something with it. I think you can mount it on a wall.
My wrists are screaming hydraulic. Like it's just you back yourself, you paint yourself into a corner, and you don't want to it's so bad.
Yeah, but if it's going to be a fix, all those insert studios you mentioned, are I don't think they're set and they never change them. So
the better ones have adjustables.
Well, if you have deep
the old stupid
and
ones
a big room, because I was going to mention the fact that hydraulic lift takes up a lot of space because it has to be cantilevered, so it has to have feet that come out in front of it about 3 or 4 feet. So you can't have any. You're going to have to trip over the things or deal with that, and they have another 1.5 feet behind it. So that thing's going to be sitting at least, if you've got a wall behind it or you're up against the wall, you're going to be within 1.5 feet or 2 feet. It's going to be 2 feet or so away from the wall. So that's going to eat up a lot of your space. So if you have the room, fine, get the hydraulic and a deep pocket. So apparently that 98-inch screen probably cost a bit of money.
Once you go 98 inches for the screen, you might as well just keep going. Don't underinvest in one place and overinvest in another.
I feel like I've seen those hydraulic lifts in a road case, though. I mean, they're not that
We have them.
huge.
They come right out of the case.
Yeah, exactly.
We take them out of the cases. We take the case off the top, and then we just move them up, and it's magic.
It is
You guys
magic.
with all your hydraulics and stuff like that.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Whatever. They will make
Just
it electric.
get you a chair that has a
here's all I'll
pneumatic
say is
lift and a
Paul's not
camera
trying to
that
do
can
it.
go up and down a foot, and that's
Paul-
really all you need.
Paul's not trying to get new clients, but I can tell you, you roll into someone's place, you pull the top off, and you move everything up. That client's going to stick around.
I agree. I agree
about
completely
theater.
with that. And I do agree with you, Alex. I will back up and I will say, Paul, if you're going to build something similar to more like a insert studio, like what we were talking about mostly, I guess now, that's one thing. But to create a video wall this 98 as a replacement for a video LED wall, it's not that. So I just want to make sure what your expectations were. But if you want to make things move up and down and everything, I'll be your Huckleberry. Let's talk. We'll get some 80/20 and we'll make it work.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Peter Belbin in Houston, Texas. Blackmagic Design's NAB timed update advert mentions, quote, broadcast, post-production, and cameras. I wonder if it's a PTZ in the mix. What else might you want?
Go ahead, Alex.
PTZ. That's the only thing. Like I think all of us are looking like, how do we not get? It's fine. We've got good PTZs now. So the market for Blackmagic's PTZs are probably starting to slowly move away, just because there's so many other ones out there that are really doing a great job. And so I think that there was a huge market for it 3 or 4 years ago. That market might be eroding at this point, unless they can get a really good price point, which they might be able to do. I think that a Super 35 PTZ at $2,500 would sell as many as they could make. So that's I think that's where the sweet spot is, and it's a sweet spot that Blackmagic might be able to hit. I think that it'll be interesting to see what they do with switchers, routers. We'd love to see larger routers. The 80 by 80 is nice. We need more than that. So the 80 by 80 is like just starting up, a major location. So I think that would be something we'd like to see. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with Resolve. Resolve, typically at NAB, we'll see 150 to 200 features announced, and there'll be a lot of. I'm going to guess there's going to be a lot of AI solutions as well. So a lot of interesting things there.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas. Do Apple Silicon Macs have an unsolvable synchronization issue with ATEM switchers? Doug Johnson says Mac manual display settings are bogus and cannot be validated at a decimator input. And he's got a link there to this discussion.
Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, so I tried to get through this, and first, I like and respect Doug Johnson. He's been on this panel. I was trying to scrub through the video and see what he was trying to say. I have never had an issue with this. It can be a little bit squirrely at first if you're using the direct input from a MacBook. If you go through a OWC converter and then go into SDI, it will lock, and then, in my experience, it'll be fine.
Guy?
Yeah, I was just having this issue on this Ultra down here. I had to grab out my, what is this thing? Geffen some little box that basically takes the ID. So it depends on the machine, but his solve was to get one of those little $12 pass-throughs that basically do the same thing. It locks that resolution. So you might want to just watch the video if you're having an issue trying to get a Mac screen into an ATEM workflow. But it looks like if you watch the video, his solve is these little pass-through devices. Mine was more expensive because, well, it does a lot more, but it was only like $79. But the ones that he's talking about are $12.
All right, thanks for that. As we wrap up our first hour, we'd like to welcome anyone who's joining us from a YouTube channel that's not Office Hours Global. Welcome. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel so that you can see all of our broadcasts every day from 7 to 9 Pacific. Also, go to officehours.global and you click join us, and then you can get on our email list where you can find out all about the upcoming shows, get a daily email about what we're talking about, and also join into Makana where you can see or where you can have an enhanced experience in getting your questions in and getting them answered. Just a reminder, coming up, we've got our Saturday Q&A tomorrow, so if we didn't have time to get to your question today, and it was a QR code question, we'll filter those right back in. If you submitted a question through Makana that was a general question that we didn't get in, just go up to the hamburger menu. It'll be in your notes, and you can resubmit it when you'd like to resubmit it. Sunday's our introspection day. Monday, we've got the eclipse. So we're doing our regular show in the morning, and then at 11 a.m. Pacific, we'll start broadcasting. And we have little sites along the way where we have different folks, including myself, who are going to be on site capturing the eclipse and broadcasting it, and we're very excited. And then now I think we're just excited to gear up for NAB. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about some trends. And now, welcome back to our second hour. We're talking all about our NAB plans. How are we covering it? What are we bringing? Where are we going to be? Who are we going to see? What are we doing? And Alex, I know you're just chomping at the bit to get into this, so I'm going to toss it right to you.
Thanks. So I'm going to give you a little bit of overview of what we're doing, and then we'll answer your questions. We can talk to as much detail as the panelists want to talk about, as well as much detail as if you ask any questions here. So this will either be really short or really long. Depends on the producers. We've got a couple questions rolling in already. So let me give you an overview of what we're doing here. So if you look at this is the overall NAB. So this is the central lobby. There is a north hall here. I think it's under construction. So I think that they've been kind of moving around with these to kind of upgrade all of these halls. But the west hall over here is a place that we'll wander over to. It's got some radio, but it also has a lot of the distribution. So the AWSs, the switch, the SATAs, those kinds of things will be over there. Central hall here is where we will be, and I'll show you that in a second. And then we have the south. The lower south is where a lot of the production booths are, the Blackmagics, that type of thing. Upper South Hall has a creator hall, so that's going to be there as well. Now, what we did is NAB has given us a booth space. We would like to thank NAB for that. So, we asked for the central hall, and the reason we asked for the central hall is, in my opinion, that's where all the candy is. It's all the things that you want that's easy to shoot. So the software stuff and a lot of the stuff that is not as it's harder to shoot is over in the South Hall and the West Hall. There's not as much to look at over there. And so I was like, if we're going to put our booth somewhere, we want to go to where all the candy is. So we went to the Central Hall. That's where all the camera rigging, the lighting, the B&Hs, the Sonys, the NAND lights, aperture, all those things are over there. So anyway, so that's what we asked for the Central Hall here. And to give you a sense of where we are going here, we have, let me see here. Let's see if I get this right here. A lot of moving parts. Let's see here. There we go. So here's what the Central Hall looks like. And of course, here's like Sony over here. You can see Canon. So there's a couple big booths, but what's really fun about this is lots of little booths. So there's all these little nooks and crannies of lots of smaller booths that are all in this area. And what we wanted to do is first we were over here, and then we were over here. We were a very high maintenance partner, given that we were given a free space. We were like, so first we were over here, but I was like, but we'll hear too much. It wasn't me. Someone pointed out, like, we'll hear a lot of stuff from the main stage. I was like, oh, okay. And then we got over here, and then we ended up right here. And I'll zoom in that in a second. But the advantage of being in the center, because now what we love to do at some point is to be here. But this is a really great space for us. it might even be better than what we were planning, is because it's going to be a little quieter than up here. But what this does, and I'll explain it. We're going to have a wireless system that we have our booth here, and this we think, because we're using Vislink transmitters, we think that we may be able to cover as much as, all of this. There's a big right here is restaurants and metal. So we don't think we think there's going to be a shadow here that we can't get to these booths over here, but we'll figure out another way to do that. But outside of that, we should be able to cover most of the central hall. There could be a shadow here. There's a lot of rebar in this area. But outside of that, we can cover it live. And what I mean by that is that I'll explain this in a second, but we'll be able to actually have a live interaction between our panelists and the folks that are on the ground. So it's going to be we were really inspired by Guy's coverage of CES, and so a lot of this was really driven from that's really, really compelling. And then how do we beef it up with a little bit more, with $100,000 of wireless? So like how do we so how do we really turn this on and make it work? So the panelists are going to be able to talk directly to people, and I'll show you the rig here in a second. Or the beginning of the rig. I'm going to be working on it over the weekend. Hopefully it'll be running by the end of the weekend, or by Tuesday, I think is my cutoff on it. So we're going to have a wireless rig to do that. So then I'll zoom in here. Let's jump into this. So this is, as we go in, this is if you look back, I'll go back one. So we are right here. And so you can see these little stairs here. Those stairs are right here. So we're kind of nestled down here into something that's a little bit slower moving, and it means it's a little bit quieter, which is really good for the booth. Now I'll show you the booth here in a second, but we're putting a screen here, and the reason we're putting the screen at an angle, you'll see it, and you'll be like, why didn't they just put this against the wall? It's because if we put it like here, all you'd see is stairs, or the concrete slabs in front of the stairs. And so we want to show a little bit of something moving over here. So we're going to kind of turn the screen a little bit and have a place for someone to sit, over here. And so let me show you what that looks like. This is so here is the screen here. I don't know if I can rotate this around. Nope. So this is actually a 3D model that I can move around, but this is kind of gives you a rough idea of what we're doing. Now we're going to have some hardware here, over here. Now the Sony cameras are going to go here, and we're probably going to put one right here. So this is going to be, we may put it up here, but right now we're planning to put them in kind of an array. Now the reason we have 3 of them is, number one, is we might want to get close-ups of something that someone's showing us here, but we also may end up with 3 people, and so we want to be able to do a multicam of them talking. This is the camera. So when I point out those cameras, this is. Oops, let me erase that and cut to this. Yeah. So this is the camera. When you see those PTZ cameras, this is the Sony FR7, and so Sony has lent us 4 of these, and so those are the cameras that you'll see here. So this is and it's got I believe it's the 28 to 135 on it. So this is a motorized, so it's the beefiest PTZ I've worked with, other than built-in PTZ. And this is a full frame sensor, so it should look really nice. And I've used these, this isn't new for me. For my day job, I use these all the time. So we use these for interviews. So typically what we do is, for our interviews, we do four of these and one FX6. And that's how we kind of do most of our interviews. And so anyway, if we go back to this, so we'll have these PTZs. So if you can picture those PTZs on either side, they're looking in here, and then we're working on having another PTZ that goes up high here, and this is just going to look out. So we can cut out and give you a wide shot of what's going on. We can also move that around a little bit. These cameras are controlled. So on site, we can actually control these with hardware. This is the controller. So this has got a tripod that lets us control this, and we'll be showing you tours of this from the booth when we get there. But we can do zoom and zoom here. We can move it around. We can also, of course, do focus. So we have a lot of things. We can paint the cameras, that type of thing, with this hardware. But we're also going to have, we just got this PepLink router. And so this is, and someone asked me, what PepLink did you get? And I was like, the one that Jonas said to get. Like that was a very technical thing. So so this is the model B1. So this is going to be our router. And so what's cool about this is that we will be able to have different people driving those cameras from anywhere in the different parts of the world. So we're not just, because they're all IP based. Those cameras will be able to be driven from anywhere. So we'll be able to kind of move them around, and we'll be playing with that process. Now the schedule, I'll get to the other pieces here in a second, but let me show you what the schedule looks like here. This is what the schedule looks now here. So we have setup. So we're going to be setting up on Friday, setting up on early Saturday, and we'll do some rehearsals on Saturday afternoon. And then we have setup on, each day, each morning, we'll do a little bit of setup, and then we go live. And now we're going to go live from noon to 3 on Sunday and Monday. I'm doing Mac Break from 11 to 2 on Tuesday from the booth. So so it'll be a kind of coming in live from the booth, and then we'll go live for our show for 3 hours on Tuesday afternoon. There's a chance that some of these may run a little bit longer if we find something we want to show. And then we'll be live on Wednesday and then when I say coverage, that's going to be using that's post, VOD coverage. So we'll be doing some, covering things that we're not covering live and posting those to the site as well. So, and this is the coverage is a little bit more experimental than the live as we go through it. So this is kind of the overall schedule that we have planned for this. And I'll kind of walk through again what the hardware is that we're using. The primary pieces of hardware that we're using is the live view here. This is and I'll talk about how that works. And then the Sony FR7, the FX6 from Sony as well. Sony's provided those for us to use. Live view is provided. All of these have been provided except for the Mac. Apple didn't give us anything. So anyway, Vislink has given us these very high quality processors, very high quality transmitters, and it's two-way. So it goes both to and from. And the Mac is running Zoom. So all of this, so most of this is going to be powered by Zoom. Zoom is our connection partner. So Zoom has made this possible. The connection was, this wouldn't have happened without their support. So most of this will go through Zoom, and I think that what our goal is to really take it to another level when it comes to interaction and interactivity in a way that we haven't done in the past. So if we go to this next, so what we're doing here is this is the booth, and what we'll have is these cameras. I kind of gave you that layout. We'll have the Sony camera here, and then we'll have via Zoom. They're going to be connected. So Zoom here is going to connect them to the panel. The panel will be on this screen here. The person who's being interviewed is not being interviewed by someone they're not being interviewed by someone else sitting next to them. What we want to do is we want to drive their view to the screen. So we want to drive we want to have them looking right at the camera. So this is basically a giant version of a Interatron. And I would have built it as a teleprompter, except that I have found that glass that big is dangerous. Anyway, so the tell me how I know. Or ask me how I know. So the person will be looking at the actual panel. So this is really a remote panelist driven show. So the reason that we want to keep on underlining that is if you're watching the show, it's really about the panelists, and it's really about the online viewers watching the show, asking questions. I don't think any show has been this focused on this process ever. So definitely not at NAB, and probably not ever in anywhere where it's been this much infrastructure that's pointed towards allowing the online audience. Because the goal that we have here is that being at the show is the best experience. Like, I'm just going to tell you flat out, there's nothing like if you're into video, being at NAB is, and in my opinion, NAB is my favorite show. It's the one show that I've only missed 2 NABs in 30 years, so it is by far my most, the show that I love going to the most. And you should go to it if you can. that's I will tell you every single time. And we have a booth. We have the MP07. If you use MP07, you can go for free to the expo. And the expo is where what I would really recommend going to if you can make it there. The problem is that 99.99999% of the world cannot make it there. They can't get the visas, they can't get the money, they can't get the time, they can't get all the things that are required to go to the booth. And what we want to do is start providing the experience of the expo. We have this huge advantage that we have all of these vendors in one place. Let's make sure that we can get as many of them out there. And this is our first test this is the first test of really pushing this. We've been doing tests of events for the last 2 years. So this is the culmination of all the work that's been done and all the different events of, okay, well, let's try something that has a little bit more infrastructure to it. So that's what this booth is setting up for. And so if you're watching this right now, just think about being here for that schedule. We're going to push it pretty hard because it's going to really depend on the viewers. It's going to depend on the panelists and the viewers to work through it. So now let's go back to this. We have the next piece here. This is wireless. Now this is using the FX6 from Sony and the Vislink. And of course, this again is a Zoom connection back to the panel. So we will, to get started, we will have a person kind of, one of our, Bill or myself or some of the other folks that are going to be hosting, kind of hand it off in this wireless section. And I'll show you the schedule here in a second. But the goal is really to get the vendor to talk directly to the panel. And the way we're doing that here is, so the Sony cameras just showed up while I was gone in Dallas, and so I'm putting them together. But this will have a Sony camera. This will have the FX6 on it. But this is the beginning of that rig, and so this is kind of the production, kind of the camera production version of the Ivy that Guide used so effectively. But this is now we're not sure if this is going to be a shoulder rig or not. I think we initially envisioned it as a shoulder rig. As we add more things to it, we're not sure if someone wants to put it on the shoulder. So we're going to see how that looks with the transmitters and the batteries and everything else. It's going to get pretty heavy, but we may still put it on or give it the option. So anyway, so this is the rig that we have here. So the panel will be right here. So you'll be able to see the panel in there. And this is a speaker. My son actually, this is, if you're wondering, how is this attached to this? My son actually printed this holder. It actually has slots in it to go right through the rails, and it just holds onto this little Anker speaker. And it's on there. So he did a good job and we use TPU, so it's a little bit stretchy and a little bit sticky. So it's really in there. So basically, this will be the camera rig, and the wireless coming from will be transmitting from the booth to this system here, and then from this system back to the booth. So it's a two-way communication. I think it's less than a frame of round trip. So it should be it should feel like just like Zoom, except that it's going through this rig. And what we're taking advantage of, again, is because Zoom is our connection partner. We have a 50-50 connection at the booth, which is pretty unusual for a booth. So we have enough bandwidth to do all of these things to make this possible. So this is what's going to happen here. That's the second way that we're connecting with you. Now, the third way we're going to connect with folks is with a live view. So we have basically an FX6 connected to a live view. Now this one we will actually be interviewing somebody. So the live view that's a remote hit. That's the rest of the hall. So if you think about what the live view buys us is all of this area, these outer areas here, and all of this area. So we have Jeff's live view. We have a live view that Live View supplied us as well. And so we have the ability to support all these other locations with that live view. So the mixture of those, while the latency is a little bit higher on the live view, and it would be harder to have that conversation, it gives us the ability to cover anything else that we want to in all of Vegas. So we could go to parties with it. We could do, a variety of other things, and I'm talking about going to some parties with it. So we'll see how that goes. Those might be more of a opportunistic thing. Now, how does this all kind of tie into the show here? So let's go back to this. So basically, this first part here, this is from the booth. So this section here is coming in from the booth, and we're going to be that's at the top of every hour. There'll be somebody at the booth, a vendor or a person that we want to talk to. The second piece is this is wireless from the floor, from the central hall. And then we have, this is the live view. So, and the reason we did this was so that the top and the bottom can be scheduled. So we're just scheduling those, and it's mostly scheduled now at this point. So most of those slots are full. And then finally, we have wireless again. Now, the other thing here is that there will, of course, be some gaps. And so if you think about these gaps here, this is also where panel will talk. Now, the panel will talk in between, we'll glue these together. The panel also, this is all panel. So this is a remote with the live view. But this is all of this here is all the panel interacting with folks. And what we've done with this schedule, and the reason that we have the schedule set up the way we have it here, is so that it rests all the systems as well. So basically, one of the problems we've gotten into is 2 or 3 hours of this. You have battery issues. You have a wireless issue that you have to deal with. You have a lot of other things. And by the way, all the audio for all these remote systems, I didn't display it here, is all provided by Electrosonic. So Electrosonic gave us the mics that we've used in the past. To make all of that work. So we have but this is where the panel is going to be interacting. And then the panel gets a break. So that when we go to the live view, the panel gets to, it's a 3-hour session. so the panel doesn't have to sit there and be on the whole time. They'll be on for 40 minutes we've proven that we can do at least 40 minutes here on our own. But the panel will be able to walk away. If there's certain panelists that we swap in and out, those will be the times to do it. It'll also allow us to tend to any wireless stuff. And it means that every time we throw to something, we're able to, have practiced with it. Now, at the booth, all of those feeds are going into Zoom. So those are all going to go in individually as a Zoom room. So those will be delivered, out of 3 or 4 of them will be delivered back to and all of this is happening it's all being run from all over the world. The stream is actually coming out of Michigan, out of Detroit. So John Wallace's system will be the one that runs this whole thing. So we're minimizing the amount of work that we have to do on the floor. So the goal is to really make the floor about acquisition and really make all the edits and everything else happen remotely. We're also working on, in Makana, we're working on some updates to it where you'll be able to tag the schedule will be completely done by next Wednesday, where there won't be any more scheduled slots opened. At that point, you'll be able to start asking questions. So you'll be able to look at whatever's being released. You'll have a drop down inside of our typical, the same thing you use here for the show. But you'll be able to have a drop down for it that is, and you'll be able to ask questions ahead of time. And those will all be tagged so that we can find them quickly as we kind of go through that process. Those will also start disappearing as we do them. So that's what we've been working on the back end, on our end, to make sure that we can cover it effectively. So that's kind of a quick overview. I can get into more detail if folks have questions. I think we got a couple comments and questions from the panelists. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this for a while since Alex and Esther are going to do it. And so if I'm going to be on remotely out there, normally I come in here every day. I have a system that's all set up. I understand exactly how to mouse to something and click on it or use my trackpad or whatever. So I was thinking, could I do something? And I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring this and use it, but I got down a rig to 2 bags that I can fly with. And it's been a really interesting intellectual process. Here's a picture of what I had set up as I was starting, and it gives me all the monitors I normally have, and yet it turns out it's a very, very, very small rig. Let's see. Why can't I get to the next? Flip this over. I have to do that. Here we go. Here's the next picture. It is incredibly small, and so incredibly thin and light. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull this off because I've got a couple of little things to pull together. But for me, the intellectual thing was, can I go somewhere and do what I do every morning and have all my tools available and yet make it a system I can travel with? At this point, I think I'm very close to having that done. I'll finish up the last couple things. I don't know whether we're going to have room, whether they're going to be allowed to travel with it. Maybe I have to do something else. But you all know that when you're sitting at your desk, you're really used to it and you don't have to think much about where do my hands go and that kind of thing. And that's what I'm trying to figure out, whether I can do that in a mobile rig that I can use for the rest of my life. It's been really fun. For example, one thing that was really interesting, the teleprompter's in that, so I can keep track of eyeline and things like that. It was really complicated when I built it on the stand without pulling my computer out. I could never get anything other than a giant headshot. So how am I going to extrapolate that back to the normal office hours presence that I can do from a remote location and just make this all turnkey for me? It's really been fun to think it through and buy the pieces.
I like building kits, and there's something about it that is interactive in the sense that it's just impossible to do in your head, in my opinion. You have to go, okay, I'm going to sit down with a table, and I'm just going to start doing stuff. And the reason I started building these kits ahead of time was because I would go, oh, right, I need that. Oh, right, I need that. And now usually that happens on the ground, and I go, well, we're not going to do that because I don't have it. In this case, the more expensive solution is do it way ahead of time so you can keep on ordering gear.
Totally resonate with that. I've learned so much.
Small parade of Amazon deliveries shows
It's been
up.
5 or 6 bags a day, like little bags of like, I need this and this and this and this and this. So I have so many Allen wrench. Small Rick sent you an Allen wrench with everything. I have like a bag full of Allen wrenches now. That are just So
I got 7 more this week.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Courtney.
I got a couple of questions. I plan on being on the panel, so I will be remotely coming in on the panel here.
And for the folks here, so I think that Ronnie's on the panel. Ronnie, you're on the panel, right? And Guy's going to be on the panel, and Courtney's going to be on the panel. I think John Idelson's going to be on the panel. There's going to be a couple others. We have a great panel, and that's really, it is the core of the show. Does not happen without, and Grant, I think, is going to be on the panel as well. And so so we're putting, we have 4 or 5 people. My goal is to get about 6 to 8 through the entire thing. And but it's a really, really technical panel, which I think really proves the model. Like, we have 4 or 5, 6 continents, coming together with great experts asking great questions. And so, go ahead, Courtney.
So one question I had in your pie chart of where the panel has a break and you're going to the live views from the remotes, is Bill hosting going to be able to vamp if there's time between the live view ping pongs? So he'll be.
That was one of the reasons for trying to get the rig together was in case somebody says, "Can we just go to Bill out there while we're fixing something in the back end?" I wanted to have my normal rig to be able to do that. If
those schedules will be pretty hard, but what I mean by that is that we're working on a couple fine tuning on the schedules. But what will happen is if the live view gets to the end of an interview, their directive is going to be to walk around, like just go walk.
Okay.
Just walk. We're not going to try to bring them. Because we can't bring them back to the panel because I've told the panel they have a break.
Right. So that's why I wondered where Bill was going to be since he's planning on traveling. If he's not going to,
Bill's going to use that rig for the show for office hours, but on the ground, Bill and I will be stand-ups. At the location. So we'll.
I see.
Yeah. So we'll in the live view, we're standing interviewing somebody. For the wireless, we'll be setting somebody up to keep talking. And again, in some cases, we're going to have other people that are in our group who really know a subject. I don't want to, for the live view hits, one of the things, if we have somebody who wants to show something, we may let them do the interview. We'll have them pick it. So it's not Bill or I, it's another person on the ground. We'd love to hand that off to other people to do some of the interviews. And so we'll be working on that as well.
I don't want to be stuck in the booth. I want to be able to roam the show floor because that's the serious fun of this.
There's no sticking in the booth because we're not hosting anything in the booth. So as hosts, when someone is coming in at the top of the hour, they are interacting with the panel. There's none of us there at all. We're going to.
So you'll have a liaison in the booth to get the person situated and get them set up and
and it's going to be pretty simple. We're going to give them
what they're doing. Yeah.
We'll have a speaker that we can bleed out if we had to, but we're going to give them an IFB. We're going to give them a headset mic. We'll have an SM58 backup. We'll have a couple of those laying around. So we'll have we can put, people up to 3 people on, there, but they're going to be told you're talking to that screen, you're through Zoom. You're not.
Now, speaking of that, how come the camera is not in the way of the Zoom participants if it's in front of the screen?
What we're planning to do, and this is still a moving part right now, is that we're planning to use the Unreal Engine to move the panelists around the screen. I'm short a PC, so I'm working on that. So assuming we can solve the PC problem, we can have that done. I'm making a couple calls this afternoon. I think we can solve that, but I right now I thought, I'll buy one, but the costs of doing the booth have exceeded my ability to keep on throwing things into it. So anyway, we're looking for a partner to provide that for us, and I think I've got some good lines on that. So anyway, assuming that happens, our plan is to use is to use Unreal Engine and just move the panelists out around the camera. Our worst case scenario is that we have 2 black frames that we put into the grid and we put the panelists around it and we just move them around so that they're not in front of it. But no panelists will be behind the camera. Like that'll be definitely how we kind of set this up.
I got one more question concerning the layout of the booth. If you want to go back to that, and looking at it, the sight lines, you said, well, here, let me bring it up so I can tell you. Oops.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talking about, well, I'm looking at the layout of the floor. You have the screen facing this way, which means the background's going to be these 2 booths, and there's not going to be any visibility from the people. The main aisleways here, they're not going to be able to see our booth from the aisleway, so they'll only be able to see our booth if they're coming down this little. We don't really here. If we put the monitor facing this way, this is the fire lane, and a lot of people head up and down that fire lane. It is a thoroughfare. Then they'd be able to see the monitor and might attract some people. But I'll be honest, you don't want to necessarily have people. We don't really come into the people booth, to show. Really, I guess so.
That's a feature, not a bug.
Stay away from our booth.
we're hoping that people will walk by and ask us what it is and get some information about it because they think it's cool and we haven't done it before. We actually don't want them to stay and watch. Like we're not trying to support a big crowd around us trying to watch it. We don't have the space or the manpower to really manage that effectively. And so, it may happen, like we may get into that, but that's why we're not bleeding out the audio. And that's why we're not doing a service monitor is because we actually don't want people to hang out. Like it
might also end up with looky-loos just kind of staring at the camera from over the person's shoulder.
And that's one of the great advantages of a Sony FR7 is that
they'll be out of
really
focus.
Short depth of field. They'll all be out of focus. Really important. It's really important. It really takes a lot of, and we'll have enough people. We have enough people in the team that we'll be able to shuffle people back a little bit if needed to just like, hey, can you give us a little space, in that area? But in general, unless they get right on top of that person, they're all going to be out of focus, which is one of the reasons that we love one of the reasons we love the FR7 was the ability to do that specifically. So as we'll get a short depth of field, I'm going to bring my 35 that's really fast, and we may end up putting it on there. Or we may get a slightly longer lens that's fast as well, so that we can. I'm testing some distances and making some requests, but the idea is that we might take that one down to 1.8. So that everything is just kind of behind them. Like you can see people moving. We want to see some movement. But yeah, there was a lot of discussion about the direction of that. And a lot of it is the intention is not to, if we get a bigger booth, next year or whatever, and we can realign where people are watching, we would probably change that. But at a 20 by 10 booth, having a big crowd is not our intention. It may happen, but it's not our intention.
You don't want somebody coming up and tapping the guy in front of the camera on the shoulder to ask him a question.
No. If you've ever met Greg on our team, he'll give him the people. And they'll be like the evil eye. He's a big guy. So Greg, he's about 6'5", so like he's imposing he's the nicest guy in the world, but he looks imposing. So anyway, any other questions, Courtney? Nope. Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, he could be the chief shuffle officer. In the design of the booth, you do have what looks like tables and chairs. Is that just for design only, or is there a purpose to that?
Yeah. So we number one is we need a couple places where someone can help manage the Zoom if it happens. I mean, it's mostly remote, but we need to have a place, and we may not have as many monitors as we show here, but it's I'm just kind of roughing things out. That we'll have some monitors here. It'll most likely be 2 on arms, but the idea is that we have, and then we also we will be charging. We will be working on the kits. We will be, so there won't be a lot of people back here, but there'll be. I'm assuming, given that we have a team of 22 people on the ground, there will be people who need to sit down and work on something. So that's kind of why those tables are there. There's a little bit of a. We don't know, we don't know what will happen. So we're just going to have those there. We know that we need to, in some cases, if people are doing VOD work, we're going to need to be able to download stuff and upload things, and so typically in the press room, we were able to kind of do that there. This will be a lot faster, not during the show. But after that, people will need to work there. especially if we're doing, because we do, our goal is to not only do the live, but to experiment with doing more VOD. So we'll be doing some hits where you'll see stuff that's just getting posted to YouTube on a shelf that is, that's stuff that we find interesting, and we'll be shooting it. We'll be experimenting with different formats. So the other rig that I didn't show, I've kind of mentioned in the past. Now, this is the full rig. It will very rarely be configured this way, but this is a phone rig. So I'm experimenting with covering it with a phone rig. So you've got Lectrosonics on the top. We've got Ambisonic on the top. We've got a return for zoom on that monitor. A lot of times this top part will get cut off, will get taken off. But this all is pretty functional, and we'll be testing that. I'll be shooting with the R5C as well to see what it looks like for 180 stereo. I'll be shooting stereo out of this rig with the iPhone. I'll also be doing some coverage with the Apple Vision Pro, where I'm doing, because the one thing about the Apple Vision Pro is that it is an incredible POV camera. So in addition to doing 3D, doing a stereo, I can put the Vision Pro on and just grab things and talk about them and look at them, and you're seeing what I'm seeing, like as if I was like, you're in my head, like as John Malkovich would say, you're in my head. So anyway, I think that's we're gonna be outside of our live broadcast. We're gonna be doing all those things, and we think that there'll be service that's required at the booth. And again, because we have a really pretty fast connection, we'll be able to do stuff there. Obviously, there'll be charging stations because we'll be going through lots of batteries. So those will be some of the things we kind of pay attention to. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, so nearby to that location, I had a booth, a 10 by 20, same size for a decade with Reflect Media. So I'm very familiar with the area and the people that walk by and kind of the demeanor. They're looky-loos. They want to see what's going on. So if we're telling them, okay, look, but
we're not pushing them off. I'm just saying we're just not trying to build something that is, we expect to be 4 or 5 people, but without a audio bleed out, it'll be very hard to follow. Like like that's why we're using IFBs. So that with an IFB going back to the person, there isn't going to be there's not a lot of there to cover. So we think that's going to be kind of the, you'll watch it for a little while, but you won't stay forever because you're only seeing half the conversation. I mean, you're only hearing half the conversation. That gets to be frustrating. And we're doing that on purpose. So
I just wanted to be invited back next year. So what's our goal? What defines success to those that are helping, give us the booth? Because I want to define success so that we're all on the same page and we know
people being at our booth is definitely not one of the measurements. So it's how we broadcast out, how we represent the expo. That's what's important. So we are outward facing. So we don't having a booth like there was a point where we weren't sure we were going to be able to have a booth and we're going to be way off in one corner. And when I told them that, when I said, oh, by the way, if we're going to do that, I'd rather just be in a meeting room. I just need, I don't need to deal with all the trouble of being on the ground if I'm not going to be able to cover the central hall. And that's when we ended up in the middle. And NAB has been incredibly supportive of what we're doing. They were ready to support us in October, and I just couldn't get all the bits and pieces together to do this. But they've been supportive for the last Vegas one. They were like, "What do you need?" And that's all I could ask for was passes. And then this time they gave us a space, which has been incredible. So what they're looking for, and what I think that all of our partners are looking for, is us proving how we use this technology to get out to the rest of the world, to really show off the expo to everyone else. So it's really what you see on your screen is what we're accountable for. And so not what we do there doesn't matter except for the fact that some of the hardware, I think we're a great example of how to use those FR7s to their max. This is what they're built for. They're not built to put in the back of a room for a conference, for a plenary. They're built for these studio environments, and I think
then I want control one from the panel side. I want to be able to have.
You'll be able to do that
over here. Will it really?
Yeah, you can do it. You can do it through a web page right now, and I might even be able to give you a. Let's talk about that.
That's exciting. All right, cool.
I have 2 of those controllers. So maybe we should just send you one, and so that you have a hardware controller that we can figure out how to tie the hardware controller in, and you can do that. I think that would be cool. So let's talk to me and send me an address, and we'll get you one out. So anyway, but we can do it through the web interface already. We know that Jonas has done it in the past. That's why I said, well, what router do we need? And wrote Jonas while we were talking. I bought it, and so we're going to tie that into the system there. Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie.
Two different things. Are each FR7 going as a separate feed into Zoom?
That's the plan. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is, will there be displays for people to actually see the final broadcast?
No, because we don't want them to watch.
Yeah,
So there was a lot of discussion about it, like about putting the ones up, and we're going to have another screen that isn't on this render. I've learned certain things, especially as people get into NAB. You have to get way ahead to get the logos. so the logos and like the official logos, to make sure that if you're going to print the wall, you really got to make sure that you can't just go up somewhere and get something. So I was a little behind on that. So what we're planning to do is put another monitor right here. So that this monitor will be right here, or it'll be right here. So I'm not sure. We may put it up here on a stand. And it actually is going to be a better experience than putting the logos on the wall. Like, it took me a little bit of but it's more costly for me. But at the same time, what it means is that we can have brought to you by, and have, little, Sony and Zoom and Lectrosonic and LiveView and VisLink, and we can have big slides up there for it, which is actually, I think, going to be and we can put messaging in if we want to. And so those are all advantages that we have that we didn't have before. We can keep on making adjustments to it. So that's, here's the crazy thing is, we had the offer of an LED wall as big as we wanted it. We could have made it the whole thing for free. It was, what was expensive was installing it. So the union cost of installing it were going to be like $6,000. so it was like, we can't. So the screen, we had a 1.5 screen that we could put back there. We just didn't have the money to pay for the things. And by the way, this is definitely the most expensive thing we've ever done. If you're watching this right now, I don't usually do this, but officehours.global/donate would really help right now. so because I'm kind of backstopping the whole thing, and it's a pretty expensive process. So we'd love to have some support for this one. This was we don't usually put the hat out, but we're putting it out on this one because we went all out in trying to make this work. Go ahead, CJ.
And just a comment to you alluded to it a few times during your presentation about what we're doing, but there truly is a big lift from all of the volunteer community within Office Hours, of people coming to NAB, people offering their time, equipment, their expertise. It's really amazing to see the community come together and rally around the initiative that we're doing here. So just acknowledge
it's a huge
folks.
lift. We've had incredible support from partners. Again, these partners are sending a lot of hardware to support it with very little red tape. I mean, surprising. Like, here, we'll just send it to you here. Sign it. Sign this over. So we've got a lot of support from partners. Incredible team coming. We have a team off-site helping to manage it. We've got a great, an incredible team that's on site. I mean, we have I think our largest team to date, and definitely the most number of hours available to it. And I think that part of the real value of this is also just the incredible camaraderie of getting to work on something we all enjoy, and getting to work with a bunch of other people. And I think that so both on the online and in room, and it's an incredible investment by everyone to be part of it. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun as well. To have this, so we're really excited about it. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to just give my 14 cents worth of. I think we should have a monitor. I really do, with just the ability to say, this is what we're going. This is where it's going, because people that are going there are going to be wandering around, like many have said, and they're just going to be completely confused, and we're going to end up telling everybody about it a little bit more than I think you would anticipate, or they just won't stop. And I mean, the whole point of doing this is to grow the community, right? So it'd be great to get other people that are there, that are video professionals, that are part of the community, that should be part of our community. I just feel like we would be missing something if we don't have at least.
We're going to provide a link.
Monitor.
We're going to have a QR code. They can hit the link and see the YouTube immediately. They can just look at it on their phone. Like if they want to see it, they can see it anywhere. They don't have to stand at the booth to see it. It's not like we have a private stream. So it's a YouTube stream. We're definitely going to be telling people where to go on that YouTube stream. We're going to be handing stuff out as people walk by. It probably will massively. I mean, we think it will dramatically change the number of people watching our show the next week at least. But we don't. But having people so we're definitely going to encourage people to go watch us live or later. For that, it will be at a 20 by 10 booth. It will be very problematic if we get a massive group of people that are all packed into there on a whole bunch of levels. And so we just we don't want to encourage people to sit around looking at it. And again, the other thing is just logistics. I've got a screen to do ads. I've got a screen to do that. I don't have money to do another screen. So it's not like just even the very basics of I don't even know where to put it yet. Everything costs money at a booth. So it's just it's a rough thing. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney. And we got to get to questions. So real quick.
All right. I just want to say I agree with Jeff. I think that second screen, rather than running ads, would probably be better just showing that we're transmitting live right now, and then they can tell the people, and you can. At least have some kind of monitor, even if it's only a 32-inch monitor, to show what's going out right now.
To be clear, we have a certain amount of bandwidth, and the program is not being created at the booth. So we don't have the program at the booth.
To receive it at the booth?
We'd have to receive it back, which will be way out of sync. It's not, we cannot play it with open audio.
I wouldn't play it with open audio at all. Just to show them what's going out.
Well, we may put time. I hear you, and we may put time at times. Put it up. The sponsorship screen is pretty important to do it again. So anyway, more important than the video. so anyway, all right, let's go to the questions.
Chuck Hodges in Toluma, California. With internet being such a kerfluffle in convention centers, how much did it cost for the internet at the NAB booth, and how did you arrange it, and how will you distribute it to cover the remote crew too?
So I think I covered most of that there. I don't want to get into the exact numbers, but I can tell you that it was north of $10,000 it was significantly north of $10,000 to get it to have that kind of bandwidth there. You organize it from Cox. The Cox manages the entire network, so you buy it there, and you literally just go to a drop down on a website and give them your booth name, and you're in. And then you pay for it. And then you have to also pay for a public IP, which is hundreds of dollars. And you then have to pay for labor to connect that IP and everything else. And so it all adds up. So one thing you do learn very quickly is that it's expensive to be on the floor. So, I mean, we had everything given to us and it's still expensive, really expensive. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, is there an eye in the sky camera to fall back on to see the bird's eye view?
Yes, and so that's going to be that one FR7 that's going to probably we have the standard 28 to 135, but we may put a 14 on it to really just widen it out so that you can see everything. So we're looking at that. We are also, some of our teams are going to be out there shooting time lapse. We'll be shooting a bunch of things that we can put in we'll have some safety slides as well as some time lapses as well as some other stuff that can be played if we needed to, and we expect to have some breakdowns. No one's ever, again, I know I keep saying this, I've never seen anybody this aggressive cover an event, cover an expo. So this is the most, and I've been covering expos for 25 years, and this is the biggest push I've ever done. So we are, elbows in as much as we can, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, next question.
Ronnie Hofsoy, Tromsø, Norway. Audio is important. How will audio be handled during NAB? Ambisonic, stereo, or plain old SM58?
It's going to be a mixture of those things. We will do some tests. We're not going to, because of the number of moving parts and because of some other stuff on the back end, we're not going to do HDR or 5.1 for the main broadcast, but we are going to do some separate streams of that. So I'll bring all the equipment. We'll configure it. There'll probably one or two HDR streams that are just the same thing we did last year. Me walking around probably with Joaquin, and we'll wander around and talk a little bit. Or with who else did we have? There was somebody else. Who was? Oh, we had a lot of fun. Anyway, there'll be me and a couple other people walking around with wireless SM58s, going in, and chatting most of the show will be it will be in stereo. We are going to we'll use headsets at the booth, and we're going to use SM58s at the with Electrosonic wireless for it. Now the booth will be all wired, mostly because there's no reason I don't use wireless unless I have to. So I always want to have stable audio. There's a lot of we're going to probably see hits. There is so much RF going through at so many levels going through there. We're really excited to have the Electrosonics there, but it's also it's just a really challenging environment. So we can expect to see some hits, but it worked pretty well last year. So I think that we have a pretty good chance. So anyway, but that's how we're going to handle audio, and we probably will have sync issues as we kind of work through this. There's a lot of stuff we're figuring out, so expect that too. Next question.
Dave Kaufman, Vancouver, BC. When the crew is roaming through some booths, the A1 is remote. So if there's an audio glitch, no one can mix minus and can gate it. Is there an A2 near the cart on comms to fix physical audio issues?
Yeah, we have a team. We're going to be organizing that a little bit. We have a pretty big team available at any given time for these things. I think it's 9 or 10 people. So we'll be splitting those up. And, I think that we're going to try to line people up as much with their skill sets, but there'll be some people that are learning in the field, taking remotes. Again, that speaker, for instance, is a backup, for, we will have an IFB system connected to that wireless that we will attempt to give to people like here. It'd be great if you put this in your ear, and so that we can have them just talk directly to them. But the speaker will be able to open if it makes sense. So that's kind of how we're approaching that process. I'd like to minimize open speakers if I can. That's not usually doesn't make the show better, other than if we don't have an IFB that works. If we have a group of people, we might open it up, and you'll see us experiment with a lot of these things. I don't know what's going to work until we do it. Next question.
Chuck Hodges from Tuolumne, California. When budgeting for a project such as NAB, what are the setup costs for a booth like this? Looking to have our own booth in the future set up to be just a mobile production studio to cover an event. So really need to know how to be able to plan.
Because it was given to us by NAB to be, I don't know exactly what the booth cost is, but I think that for what we're doing, I think you would have to budget probably about $30,000. Like that's probably a 20 by 10 booth. It's about $30,000 to have the space, to have the power, to have the internet, to have, those things. And that doesn't include all the hardware. So, and people and everything else. So, I know that the bigger booths, I know what the budget is for a bigger booth that I can't mention, but I know that their budget for staffing, gear, labor, space, everything else is $7 million for one booth. And it's not a particularly big booth. So this is a big game. But $30,000 for this one would probably be about what would be the table stakes to get in. Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
I built a 2-story house in the lobby of the Central Hall once. It cost about $500,000. It would have been cheaper to build the house somewhere else, and it really wasn't a whole house. But I have to tell you that the cost was fairly minimal to the cost of flying all the people, putting them in hotels at the most expensive time of year, paying for the meals because Vegas is an expense. I mean, so you should look to double or triple what you're going to spend on a stand to have it properly manned or personed or whatever the right phrase is. Otherwise, you're wasting that money.
Yeah, I mean, especially given the fact that we're all volunteers, all of us are volunteers and doing all this on our own. The budget for this, if someone said, can you budget to do the same production that you're doing for NAB for actual production? And I would probably bid out at about $300,000. Like, like that's what I would tell them. Like, that's what it would cost us to cover the event. If you wanted to pay us for it. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Just NAB is like that. For example, on Saturday night when I came in, the hotel was listing at, I think, $190 more than it is the next night on Sunday. Las Vegas is notorious for weekend huge prices, and it drops off the clip for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Even during NAB, there is a difference, although everything is more expensive for NAB. That's just how the big shows like this work.
There you go, Jason.
Yeah, I think that staff is going to be the largest part of your expense if you're budgeting. We are all spending thousands of dollars to do this for free because it's what we love.
Like, we're going because we love to do it. We love to be part of it. And again, I think it's a unique opportunity for us to move the world forward. I know I say that as a big word, but I mean, we have to find a way that how do we include the other 99.99999% of the world? This is good for them. It's good for us. It's good for all those vendors. It's good for NAB. All of those things, finding ways to include it, because this is the perfect example. Like, I'll be honest with you, all the sessions I could do over Zoom and it would probably look and sound better. It's the expo to me that is the real value, is that I've got all these people in one place. We can wander around and give you, and again, right, this year we are going from, we're only 3 hours a day. The next year, my goal is all the hours a day. So when it opened to close, I want to cover the expo, and then 2 years or 3 years from now, it's starting to go into multi-strand. So we have, audio and video and other things that are all like different streams that are all happening at the same time. And, and so that's where I think we could go with this if we're successful. Next question.
How are we managing audio video sync in the entire pipeline?
We are going to do it best we can. I can tell you that given how we're setting this all up, audio and video sync will be a challenge, and there will be times when it's not close, and there'll be times when it's really close. When we talk about the multi-camera, for the most part, the multi-camera at the booth will only have one person in frame. So most of the time, except for a handful of times, it's going to be, and we're going to experiment with multi-camera to see how that works. But most of the time, if we're doing close-ups with those other cameras, those are going to be pointed at hands, equipment, other things like that. They're not going to be close-ups. We are going to experiment with that to see how good or bad it is. But we're not going to, most of the time, it'll be on that center camera. So we really only have to sync the center camera to get that to work. And we'll see how that goes. And if it doesn't, I'm going to bring some extra Mac Minis, and we may give that center camera its own machine, its own setup. So I've got a couple backups to how that might look. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Guy Cochran, Seattle, Washington. How can we increase our chances of perfect wireless transmit receive in a harsh environment?
Getting the transmitters up. So get them up over the water bags. And so that's that's part of it. It is knowing where we can go testing to make sure that we wander around and see what's going on. The problem is we won't know until it goes live. Like Sunday will be exciting because we won't know like what's working and not working, because a lot of what affects it isn't just the booths getting set up. It's them doing what they're going to do. And they won't do that until Sunday. And so we'll get a better picture of that. I think I have, knock on wood, pretty good. Vislink is going to give us the best option we could possibly have. Like, if it's not working, no wireless is going to work. Now, the other thing that we can do in the future is multiple receivers. So we could build a grid of multiple wireless receivers. We've done that like with Indy cars, where we have a track and we build a mesh, and those are all bringing those back. We're not going to do that this time. But I think that the next step would be to build a mesh throughout all the halls, and that we could just wander around and be grabbing the ones that made sense. I mean, that's 2 or 3 years in the future if we're successful. Yeah, go ahead, Guy. Yeah,
that'd be interesting if that internet connection there could tie into their venue wireless, and we could have that as a backup, where if we wanted to, we could still, because like in my old building, we had 8 across the city block, we had 8 different APs, and we could spectrum hop from different ones, and it was pretty seamless. It's like a mesh, but
I don't have a lot of confidence that the APs would deliver video with the congestion that's going to happen. I mean, when you open up at NAB for wireless, there's like 100 access point, 100 different.
Goes off the page.
So you can't scroll up to find your access point with that kind of congestion. Wi-Fi is not. This wireless is private. This is private frequencies. Like, this is not, ours is private frequencies. We're not even using like 5 or 2.4.
So that's what I'm curious about. Like in the audio world, we have these things from Betso and Electro, where we have active antennas where we could say, skip out all these other frequencies and just give me these and then amplify it. So I was just curious as to if there's anybody monitoring that kind of stuff to make sure that we're getting the frequencies that we want and being able to amplify and reject.
We expect to be working with Vislink at the booth to make sure that we're getting the most out of the transmitters. So I'm going to be getting. I have them here. They just arrived yesterday, so I have them here. And so I'm going to try to test them next week, but then we'll test them more there. And again, we have the good news is all these vendors are at the show. So as we need things, we can make those work. Yeah, go ahead, Courtney.
I was wondering if there's going to be an after-hours viewing room, not broadcast on YouTube, so that we can watch people that are office hours devotees can watch behind the scenes up to the point of going live or broadcasting, or even maybe during the broadcast.
Yeah, after hours will run the whole time. So what you'll see is before the broadcast, people will be roaming around. Bill and me and other people, there'll be other people that are on the ground roaming around in after hours. So that'll all happen before we go live. So there'll be more coverage that's happening that's not being streamed, but that'll be with iPhones and other things like that. It'll just be just connecting. Let me show you around, and we're going to see how that goes, and we're going to see what we like and don't like about it. And then we've done that in the past, and we're going to continue that experiment and try to refine it. That's mostly what that iPhone rig is built for, that I built, was mostly figuring out how we deliver to after hours. The other thing that'll happen during after hours is we're going to have a Mac Mini there with two Link 360s. And so basically you'll be able to log in. Those will be UBC. You'll be able to log in and move those cameras around. So while we're broadcasting, if you go into after hours, you'll be able to move around and see the crew and look at different things and everything else. And so those little Insta360s will be there available for you to kind of get a bird's eye view of that as well. But that'll be so. And then when we finish that, we'll switch back to having after hours those will still be there in after hours, but people will be roaming around as well. Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
So out of show floor hours, how does one get onto the show floor?
Expo Pass. Yeah, so there'll only be a handful of us that have Expo Passes. So we'll have to get in there. That's one of the reasons we're not starting at 9:00 in the morning. So we have generally we have either 2 or 3 hours to get ramped up, and the only time we're starting early is on Wednesday, and we assume that we will already kind of have our ducks in a row by then to make that happen. So.
Is somebody acting as coordinating producer on site?
I think Rajan is on site there for that, but I'll have to talk to Brian about that. Yeah, but we will definitely have somebody managing that on site to make sure we know who's where and when. Next question.
Roscoe Jones, Madison, Indiana. How about office hours business cards with viewing link and basic contact info? Yeah,
it's one of the things I'm trying to get out today because I can still have time to send them to Moo. I can do them very quickly. I can do them in a day. They're just not as thick and pretty. So the ones that we handed out last time, I printed in 4 hours. So these are, and they're not bad. They're still card weight. I'm not as happy with the design, but we have some that we have available that we used last year. I mostly just don't like that the QR code, I made it too big. So it's just really big. There's not a lot of white space above and below it. But yeah, we'll be handing that out. There's a couple things we want to do is we want to hand out. Viewing link is important, but what's really important to us is to hand them out to one of the big things we're going to be doing is we established officehours.global/guest. That's what we want people to go to. So we want, if you're a vendor at the show and you see what we're doing, you want to be part of the broadcasts in the future, go to officehours.global/guest and you can sign up and we'll consider you as for one of our second hours. This may change the structure of the second hours. We may lean more into bringing guests in because we're about, we think that we might aggregate a lot of people that might be interested in scheduling with us. And so we're hoping that's what we'll really be handing the business cards out to do with different booths that we're interested in. We're not going to hand them out to everybody. We're not going to walk down and hand them to every booth. We're going to look at, oh, this is really good. Here's a thing we'd love to see you there. Next question.
Paul Wallace, Austin, Texas. Will Mukana play a big role in NAB coverage?
It's the core. So people are going to be able to ask questions during, we're going to be able to, all of the stuff before the show starts, you'll see all of the scheduled vendors that we're going to be going to, and you'll be able to start asking questions immediately. So as you see their announcements, you can go find them and ask them, but all your questions will go through the QR code. So we won't want you to ask questions via the inside of Mukana. You can still chat there, but we want you to go to the QR code because we're going to give you tagging abilities inside the QR code, and we've built that out to be something a little bit more. So there's a ton of opportunity if you're watching to really ask questions and get those questions in, and so it'll be really important. The panel will, of course, be doing that. But of course, their job is going to keep on bringing in questions from everyone. That's part of this game, is to how do we make this available to everyone watching and have them really get this experience of the kind of questions they could ask if they were on the ground. So it's going to be a big piece of what we're doing. Last question.
Chuck Hodges back from Tuolumne, California, with the free LED wall at NAB nixed as too expensive. How much was the 85-inch TV to replace it, and what will it cost to deliver it to the building to be set up? Will there be other screens at the Office Hours NAB booth for people to see, and what will they show?
And it will be a 75 or 85 because of all the costs. And again, officehours.global/donate. But because of all the costs that are coming in, we may go to 75 because it'll drop our cost in half, for the monitor. So we're kind of pulling back a little bit on those things. We don't think it'll make a attributable difference to we'd love to have an 85, but we may go to a 75 if we need to from a cash perspective. And some of that donations will make a difference on our decision because I don't have to buy it until Monday. So, and then I may buy it over the weekend. We'll see. We're trying to figure that out. But anyway, it's expensive. The monitors and the TVs and the budget I have for that is about $2,000. For the monitors, the stands, the stuff we have up to 300 pounds to deliver for free. Anything over that, we have to start paying the Teamsters for. So we're going to try to kind of minimize that, but we are going to give them a pallet worth of stuff that we can take to the booth so that we don't have to, because you can't carry anything that you can carry anything you can hold. You just can't roll anything into the venue. So anything that one person can walk in with, we can take to the booth. So we may have a couple people going back and forth to do some of that. But depending, we have to manage weights and so on and so forth. But we're still, it's new. It's exciting. I think that this will be, and again, I just really want to thank all of everyone that supported us, both in the teams, our volunteers, the panelists, and then our sponsors, Zoom. NAB and Zoom made the booth happen. Without their support, it wasn't. That wouldn't. Their support, and then it would not be nearly as good without the help from Lectrosonic and LiveView, who, by the way, have been supporting us for a year, like over a year. So they've been super helpful in helping us do what we do, and then more than a year. And then also, Sony now and BizLink have stepped up and they're helping us as well. So we really appreciate everybody's support, and 090, who gives me enough time to do this. So we just want to, the best thing you can do to support us is to watch the show, be part of the show, and make it work, to make sure that you, donate if you can afford it. Because it's really we may not do Cinegear this year if I don't figure it out, because we spent so much money on this one. So we need your donations will matter. So officehours.global/donate. But also, when you see us advertise anywhere, when we give you a link, please go. Please go to that link and be part and make sure that they see the click-throughs, so that they see that we're actually making an impact for them. So we're just going to kind of bluntly ask you to do that. That'll also help support what we're doing here, to let us do it again. We're going to get to do it this time. We want to make it bigger every single time, but it'll all depend a lot on everyone watching. So anyway, that's what we're working on. We're really excited. Again, it's probably the most aggressive expo coverage I've ever worked on, and I've done well over 100 of them. So it's the culmination of everybody that's done stuff at IBC and Cinegear and NAB and SIGGRAPH and all the other ones that we've covered so far. And I just really want to make CES. It's a really, really an amazing thing there. So and we just really appreciate, again, all the volunteers. This is an undo. When I said, the booth happened, this is undoable without the volunteers. So the people who are working on the infrastructure, the people who are working on, making sure this works, it's weeks and weeks and weeks of work. It's not the people who there are people who are showing up and spending lots of money to get there. There's also people we've been meeting for months, and there's people who are building up the systems and people making all of that work. And I just want to make sure I thank everybody there as well, because it just doesn't get done. What we're doing is impossible. Nobody else could do it other than us. So, and it's because of the volunteers that are putting in all this time over a long period of time, because of the ones that are showing up, because of the ones that are supporting it. This is an impossible project that we've taken on, and we just really appreciate everybody's contribution to what we're doing. All right. Thank you again to all the people watching, to the producers asking all the great questions. Thanks to the panelists. We really can't do it without you. It's so nice. Last week we had a little bit of a tight day, and since then it's been much better. And it's so enjoyable for me when there's so many great panelists on the panel. And we just had a great panel today, and we have a great panel almost every day. And it's such an enjoyable thing to hang out with everybody here. So thank you so much. And thanks to the incredible crew who gets this done every day, who makes sure that it happens. We have not missed a day since March 25th, 2020. And we've done this 7 days a week. We've had a couple challenges, a couple times things have gone down, and we still have a crew that is able to manage that and still produce a show. And we just really appreciate the incredible contribution that everyone makes to do this. This is really a show that all of us do together. The viewers, the panelists, the engineering staff. It's an incredible thing. So we really appreciate all of your contribution. Today, if we had to walk and actually ask these questions personally, we would have traveled 73,000 miles. That's 118,000 kilometers. And that is 580 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. The whole living room is full of cameras. I don't think.
So exciting.
Yes.
So
Excited.
You can bring those 85-inch monitors in on a hand cart as long as one person's handling it. I've done it. NAB many times.
I have been told that they've tightened up.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that behavior became super common, and then they frowned on it. So I don't know for sure. When we get there, we may find out that we didn't do it as well as we could have. But I'm also trying to not bend any rules if I don't. I'm trying to stay right inside the lines, not paint any new ones.
Just ask Greg to carry it.
Sorry.
Have Greg
Just
carry
ask
the
Greg to carry it.
Greg can carry anything.
Yeah, Greg. Strap
Peter
it to his
Rosado.
back.
Yeah, exactly. Peter Rosado. He's incredible. At SeaGraph, I think he probably had